Everybody good? We started out the first couple of weeks in the beginner series with I think like less than 10 people registered, and now we're starting to have over 20 registered in here. A lot of people need the recording afterwards, and I'll send y'all an email with the recording from last week as well. And I'm working on putting them on a meditation app that just opened up the platform to current teachers, depending on how long we've been teaching. So you'll also have, if you write down insight timer, I'll actually message everyone. I don't know how to do that. Anyways, here we go. Insight timer. It's a free app. We can do, I'm working on navigating over to that and getting rid of Zoom. But that'll probably be later into the summer. So be watching for that. Hi, Emily, Alicia, Bethany, Hildy. Welcome, ladies. Clear your mat for a moment, or clear your lap for a moment. And let's just take a few breaths. Eyes closed, opened. That's your call. Don't overdo it. Just take a moment to just arrive in this body. Using the breath, like we said last week, like an old friend coming back to nourish you, to fill you up, to calm you down. Notice that top layer of chatter in the mind and the emotions, just all the stuff. And notice if at the end of today, end of a Monday, if you are a little more willing to let it all go for now. It's not going to go anywhere, but you are not going to let your attention hang out there too long. You're going to work on trying to bring the attention to the breath. When you're breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Go inside for a few moments. Allowing yourself just to stop. Stop moving, stop talking, stop searching, stop panicking, stop flailing. Stop doing. Dropping in to this space of stillness that's just holding you like you're floating like a bubble, just hanging out in space. No need to struggle. No need to do anything but just be. And notice if you have maybe had a chance to practice gentleness today, kindness today. Sometimes depending on our responsibilities, our jobs, our interactions, it doesn't really allow for that to come forth easily. But in this moment, shift the gears, gentleness, tenderness, kindness towards yourself, towards the mind, towards any chaos or happenings going on inside. Take a big breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, open the eyes. Take a moment, and again, just hanging out in this space. Looking around with fresh eyes. Maybe type into the message box and just share where you're at in 1 or 2 words. Where you are in this moment, not 5 minutes ago, right now. Okay, relax. Trying. Oh man, I was about to type in trying. Actively, really trying right now. I hear that. I hear you. So tonight, I would like to thank you for sharing, everybody. That's the hound. I apologize. I'd like to talk about tonight the power of your practice and the power of the wisdom that comes from your practice, from a simple sitting meditation. I was reading in a memoir earlier yesterday, day before. She said, as she was explaining how she was getting into her. Nope. I apologize. Getting into her meditation practice, and she would go into her closet for 10 minutes a day and just try to be still. And she would fight the whole 10 minutes, but also compared it to how long do we look for our keys? How long do we look for things around the house or focus on other things? And so when we try to rationalize our mind, give me one day. Okay, sorry. Taken care of. But when we look at one of the things about a meditation practice, and when it comes to the topic of meditation, it's not so much there's different levels of conversation. Everything is pretty much on the same plane. Everything I'm trying to keep these talks very basic and small pearls here and there of something to chew on. Because when you sit down and really think about everything that we can excavate in our minds are limitless. There's so much there. And it's important that we prioritize trying to calm that thinking mind down. We discussed it last week, how we can be addicted to the thinking mind. We can be addicted to that activity, to the planning, to the always looking ahead, others who struggle with what has happened in the past. But if we can find a way of just becoming still and just stopping, like what I just said, we will start to hear that nice quiet calm underneath all the chatter, all the planning, all the things that distract us, that thinking mind. We got to crack below that surface. And when we do that, the power in meditation is the wisdom that you gain in those quiet spaces. And the wisdom that I'm talking about is that inner knowing, the intuition, following your gut, your instincts. When we're told that, I remember younger being told that, follow your instincts. It's like, well, how do I find my instincts? How do I know this is what that is? And I think so much of the world, especially now with social media and how plugged in we are. I don't know if you notice, maybe it's in your shower. That may be one of the very few places we can even plug in with earbuds, and how much more wild your mind is able just to go and think, and ideas just to be, because we aren't inputting more information. It's not more podcasts, Zooms, what we're doing right now, right? As much as we've been able to physically rest in the last year, us being plugged in this way has been almost a hyper dosage of something. If we don't know how to handle it, it can be an extreme detrimental distraction. And so, and with social media, with the articles, with the blogs, with all these open opinions and the very strong exercising of freedom of speech that's happening these days, I don't know about y'all, but I am very, as somebody who has had to raise herself with the lack of parenting growing up, there was a whole bunch of following the constructs of what's good or bad, right, wrong, what I should do, what I shouldn't do, what's the norm, oh, that's regular. And that kind of guides you in some way in the beginning, I feel, in early adulthood. But after a while, you want to stop following those guidelines because you're following someone else's direction. And it's our intuition, it's our inner knowing that's going to direct us into our next step, into our next decision, and how we respond to things. And so meditation is really about kind of looking at a big board of all of these different healthy mind habits that we can get ourselves into, and just picking one and starting to work on it, play with it, explore it, turn it around, look at it in all different directions, and then you can move on to another thing. So one of the pieces in meditation is being able to get yourself nice and still, even if it's 10 minutes a day, just to turn in. That's why I say arrive. You're here, and go inward. I'm welcoming you to the present moment. Because when you're able to stop and be still, over time, you're really going to start to understand that inner dialogue and what it's trying to say to you. And that is the best direction that we can get as individuals, because each of us, we only have this precious life that we are living individually. And so it was, I think, 2 weeks ago that we talked about going against the stream, going against the current, against the grain, right? So the shoulda, wouldas, or the shouldas, shouldn'ts, good, bad, right, wrong, that's going with the stream. I'm not saying rebel. In a way I am, depending on what the situation is. But yeah, rebel against those basic walls, cages, bars that box you in. I feel that's a starting place. But internally, there may be something more wise for you. No one knows what to do next. No one has the answers. And I don't know about y'all. I see somebody wrote trying, and I'm trying too. And it would be a lot easier just not to try and somebody give me the answers. I don't know if y'all ever have those moments. Maybe not full days, but moments of just someone just tell me what to do. I am really tired. I know I can find the answer. I just don't feel like doing the work. I think that's regular. That's normal. Sometimes it's painful, especially if you feel like you're the only one trying, depending on the situation. And to that, I say, be gentle with yourself and let yourself rest. It's okay not to try for a day. I didn't try yesterday. And I think that's normal, but at the same time, I also feel There is value in just sitting. That's the power of meditation, is being able to tune internally a little bit deeper into yourself. That way you're always, I'm not going to say always, but when you really sit with a decision or a conundrum and you're trying to figure out what to do, if you do the work, if you try, and you make your decision knowing that this is the best you could do, I say it could take some years depending on where you are in life. I'll be 37 this year, so it's just now clicking with me. But I did my best, and that there is a piece to that. That's all I could do. That's extending grace, that's extending kindness, gentleness. And it kind of follows that golden rule of treat others the way you would want to be treated. Well, you also treat yourself how you would want to be treated, right? So as you start to do that with yourself, you can start to do that with others in the hopes of setting that present karmic moment forward. Anything you do moving forward, even if just the last week was horrible, the last year was horrible, your whole life leading up to this moment just has been one bad decision after another, or paying for the consequences of those decisions from 10, 15 years ago. To that, I say, don't get down on it. You can start to be present and see what's going on now. Tune inward on what feels right to you consciously, especially if you are somebody who is practicing nonviolence, non-harming towards yourself and others. That's in words, that's in actions. And I mean, that's a lifetime of work in itself. So here are some points about the power of meditation that I wanted to share. And we covered a few of these points in one of the first classes of the beginner series, but like I said, meditation is something, I mean, you can't not hear this stuff enough. And so you'll hear different little themes and concepts weaved in into different talks as it works its way through. Once a daily sitting practice is established, so let's say 10 minutes. We can go 10 minutes in the morning, or 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes before you turn out the lights. That's the very last thing you do, your intentional pause before you kick into sleep mode and eyes stay closed. Number one, it incorporates a wonderful general mindfulness all throughout your day, every day. Once your mind starts to get those wheels turning and starts to find its groove, it's fully capable of being present. I was working with some athletes this last week, and one of them said, I keep on trying to get into the flow. I keep on trying to get into my zone, get into my rhythm, and I just can't do it. And it's kind of a conundrum in the sense of the only way to get into the flow, to find your rhythm, to find that groove, that zone, is to not force it. You can't just choose, okay, I'm going to drop into it. Isn't that frustrating? That's just so annoying. I always love seeing people's facial expressions when I drop that line. It's just, that's an awful truth that just doesn't change. But here's the deal, and this is what I told my baseball player. Because you can't just force yourself into it, okay, I'm officially focused on in the zone. Especially for athletes, they'll have these moments called white moments where they totally don't remember the game, but they were on fire. They could not remember one single thing. They were just going, and they were in the current. They were, the moment by moment was taking them, and nothing else was there. That rarely happens, but it does happen. And when it does, so much of that is the gift of meditation and mindfulness. The more present you are on a more regular basis, the more available it is to drop into your flow. Dropping into the flow, into the rhythm, is fully being present, nowhere else. And we get good at what we practice, right? So Instead of practicing any self-negativity, inner critic, anything like that, try to drop in and just focus on your breath and your five senses, the experience of being in the body. Don't deal with the mind. Don't deal with the emotions. Don't deal with your mood. Are you hot, cold? Clothing, hair up, hair down, no hair. So that's one of the things, a general mindfulness woven throughout the day. And as you get that throughout your days, you actually start to find more of a natural groove, and you start to find an easy current where it's less effort and it comes with just more ease. It doesn't get easier. You're just able to adapt into it a little bit more. I don't want to say willingly, but kind of, yeah. One of the other things about the power of a meditation practice is our behaviors begin to shift. We start to evolve. Because the sooner we become aware of what's going on inside, around us, the sooner we become aware of all of that, the sooner that space starts to expand. And you start to see more possibilities. Once you start to notice your own pain, your own suffering, soon you get tired of the suffering. You get tired of feeling it all the time. Pain's inevitable, but we don't have to suffer over it. I can't help but bring this up just because it's so present in so many of our lives. Two of my mama bears who helped raise me in the last month have passed away from cancer. They were in their 50s. And, you know, they were in a lot of pain, right? And those of us who have physical ailments, you can feel that pain. But mentally, are we going to suffer over it the whole time? Or are we going to be like these two mamas that I know, and they made every moment count. They were so present. Is that making sense? So they were in a ton of pain. Don't get me wrong. They were in so much pain, but they weren't going to suffer over it. They were going to find a way. And I know that's a really extreme thought process. Except when you drive into Houston or Dallas or Austin, for goodness sakes, you're going to hit traffic. That's going to be painful and frustrating and cause a lot of anxiety. But so many people choose to rage versus finding tools, music, something to decide before you turn that key, hype yourself up. I am not going to freak out about this, because as people suffer and get frustrated and angry and fall into those pits, my meditation teacher told me one time, try so hard not to break down. Because the minute you start to break down, you break down more often. If that makes sense. It almost becomes a little bit of a mind habit in itself. So I let myself break down once a month. I would love to work to 60 days apart, but 30 days is the best I can do. And man, it feels so good afterwards. You know what I mean? And I'm somebody who feels everything. I wish I could numb out like some of my clients, but I can't. And I've been suffering over that a lot recently. I can't stand hearing about animal abuse and what's going on with Mother Earth, all this stuff. This is just stuff that I can't breathe. But my therapist and I are working on tools that I don't fall into that. The poor polar bears, they're going to die off. Nobody cares. It's like people standing at the front of the Titanic. We're about to hit an iceberg and everybody else just wants to keep on dancing. You know what I mean? And so I kind of went off on a tangent, but the whole idea is when we sit and start breathing We start to see what's going on internally. Most times we notice the negative first, not always the good. We don't get uncomfortable looking at the good sometimes. And once we start to see our suffering, even before we deal with it, we start to see a little bit in other people how they start to suffer, because it doesn't take long to realize that this is just the mind. Just like I've said before, the mind just thinks, right? The heart beats, the lungs breathe. So there's no exception to any of us. Our minds work as they work. But it's our consciousness, that deeper level of knowing how we interact with the mind, is what the output looks like when we interact with those around us. And so we have to choose, and it's over 1,000 times a day we have to choose. That's why I fully understand when somebody types in, "I'm trying today." It gets really exhausting to keep doing that. That takes a lot of brain power. And so as we sit and do this, we are strengthening those mental muscles. So I do want to encourage you with that. Even if you're tired of trying, we are actively, you have the right effort. You're still showing up for yourself in some way, even if it looks messy. And the minute you can say, "It's okay, it's messy, I'm still here," that is a massive leap in itself and gives you some room to keep on going. Because once you feel that inner alignment and shift and evolution take place, you will feel a softening in the voice, in your voice, in your inner voice, in the critic and all that stuff. The critic doesn't speak up as much. You've outwitted it in some ways. And once we start to connect with others and their suffering, compassion follows. And then when compassion happens, kindness happens, a willingness to want to help and be there for others happens. And it looks different for everybody. I'm going to, I will say, I don't think I'm the best example. I'm a little bit too much of an open book. I was not raised with a filter, so I'm working on that. But I'm not saying just go out and talk to anybody, everybody. This can be a sibling. This can be a child, a friend, anyone, just holding space for somebody and just saying, "I understand," or not even "I understand," just allowing them to feel. Another thing I've read recently, being fully alive is not about being happy. Being fully alive is about feeling it all. And saying, "Yes, it's here." Like last week, hello to here. Feeling it all, naming it. That's why so many times in movies, therapists, all that stuff, they just want, it's so much of it is a mind game when you go into a psychotherapist's office. How do you feel? They're needing people to connect with what's going on internally, because no one else can do that but you. Another conundrum, another paradox, right? That is just a really tricky puzzle to figure out, and you're the only one. And there's no answers, there's no key, but somehow it can work. And so much when we come to sit on the mat, especially when life is really good, you don't really want to sit and breathe. You're kind of just like, "No, I'm going to keep on going. It's all good." We usually sit still when things are really rough waters. And usually this is where from my personal experience, one of those cul-de-sacs for me where all hope is lost in some moments, right? And even in those moments where it does feel like all hope is lost, the key in that is to sit with those emotions, knowing it's not going to stay. It's an opportunity of self-compassion, self-acceptance, And part of the process is swallowing down the hard truth that life is really hard. And today, in this moment, is the oldest we've ever been and the youngest we'll ever be again. Ugh, not terrible. So we don't have to suffer over that, right? But the sooner we can catch on and know that nothing sticks, even the good times, they aren't going to stay around forever. The bad times are not going to stay around forever. Whatever you're feeling in the moment, tiredness, restlessness, fear, worry, sadness, depression, compassion and self-acceptance purifies that inner talk. It removes the weeds, the toxic things that are being said. Self-compassion, self-acceptance is just embracing yourself with a lot of mercy and grace and letting everything be as it is. And it's really hard to do when we're trying to fit into the binds of should, shouldn't, good, bad, right, wrong. So much of the power of meditation is the wisdom gained when you're able just to sit and breathe and just start to normalize the reality for what it is. My meditation teacher says wisdom is the stillness, that light within. And we don't really get to connect to it too quickly because we do have to go through the process of what does the body feel? What is my mind thinking? What are my emotions doing right now? And then once you get through those top few layers of soil, then you start to get down into the really good stuff. Of being in a space where there's no words, you can't describe it. There's no voice even, but it's a knowing. And as you start to touch in with that knowing more, you start to sharpen your intuition. You start to sharpen that inner dialogue and begin to know yourself. And as you start to know yourself, you make allowances for yourself in some ways of just having the room to make mistakes, to try, to learn. You start to trust that inner knowing more, those instincts more. And then it starts to become almost a necessity that you need to drop in and stop for a moment just to check in with that inner knowing. The more often you connect with it, the easier it is just for that quick communication. But we've got to start somewhere. We've got to start to have the practice of trying just to sit and to be still. And the value is the wisdom in it, the power, the wisdom that's in the meditation. Meditation can be very powerful. It can really help you find a fresh path. If you have come to a dead end, you can always forge something new. And once you start to understand your mind more as you sit, you aren't so much at its mercy anymore. One of the first couple of weeks that we talked, remember we were talking about the puppy mind, the monkey mind, right? The monkeys swing from branch to branch sporadically without any care in the world. They'll throw poop at you. Your mind throws crap at you all the time. Once you start to understand this, the control shifts. The mind's not controlling you because you understand the mind. You understand how it works. So you can start to choose if you're going to listen to it, because sometimes the mind is not the best source for answers. The mind is not something to trust. You need to go deeper than the mind. There's a lot of filtering that needs to go through with what's in the mind before you have answers. Constantly changing in the mind, okay? A constant flow of change coming and going each moment leads to the next moment. So like I said, each moment conditions the next. Opinions change. We change our minds on what we want to wear, what we want to eat. We change our mind on the type of car we want to drive. We change our mind on our body. The body changes, right? Per season, every year it shifts. It's allowed to do that. The world changes. Relationships change. The weather changes daily. If you're in Houston, hourly. And I don't think there's ever been a mind that's walked on this planet who has been fully okay with the change all the time. We're always wishing for better weather, or being somewhere else, or waiting for something else to happen before we can be peaceful, content. And that's just not the way of it. And so, the power in meditation is the wisdom gained in that quiet space. And that wisdom in that quiet space is your insight, your instincts, your intuition. And once you touch in with that, you really start to understand and know yourself so much better and what's the best decision for you. No matter if it's career, relationship, personal. So many people are indecisive. They don't know how to make their own decisions. They want somebody else to tell them what to do. And a lot of people can skip by on life living that way. A lot of people can. That would be so much easier. I would love that in my next life. Somebody else tell me what to do. Because this stuff is work. It is exhausting. But it's also important to know that you can stop, you can absorb, just settle in, add stuff in as you need to. The mind constantly needs to be fed, just like our belly always needs to be fed. Our teeth will always need to be brushed. Our hair will always need to be washed. Our mind always needs to become still. And the body has to get into that position to do it. Any questions? Did all this make sense? Where I took it tonight? Excellent. Okay, well, let's sit. Feel free to move around a little bit with your torso. Twist out, adjust your neck. Do whatever you need to do to get yourself comfy. If you're sitting in a chair, maybe feet flat on the ground, both feet flat, so nothing's tipped over to one side. You want to try to remember the 6-point posture, starting with your base, your seat, the hips, the pelvis. That's place number 1. Make sure it is balanced. And from there, it's the spine, legs, hands, arms, jaw, eyes. Again, just dropping into your body, into the space that we've been. Of how you can just better know you. Creating that internal dialogue. Maybe for a moment believing that we all have our own journey, own path, own purpose. And remembering that everyone and everything belongs. Notice what you need to let go of in order to be here. Maybe it'll help just place your hand on your chest. Letting the attention rest where the breath is most obvious. As you settle down, the body relaxes a bit. Feeling at home in the present moment. Feel this body as your home. Relaxing in a different way. Again, when you're breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Feel the two streams of air coming into your nostrils. Right nose, left nose. Cool air as it hits the tip of the nose, as it comes into the body, getting warm. Remember, you aren't sitting to change anything, to judge it, to fix it. You're just seeing everything for what it is. Softening the belly, your inhales will round it out, letting go of any tension, any holding, any clenching. Where's your breath? Are you rejecting? Are you being? And remembering you can't get it wrong. Meditation is just asking your headspace to just be. Space where you can't do wrong. Some call that freedom. Noticing any voices in your head right now trying to talk you out of the practice. And just remember that voice is bullshit. Don't try to be good. Let that go. Can you just be? Noticing when your thinking mind keeps you from the freshness of this moment. Notice any physical sensations in the body as you've been sitting here, giving yourself permission to adjust if needed, ever so slightly, as little as possible. Feel in this stillness that you are open, you've softened, you've gathered some strength. It's in this same stillness that you can start to discern your individual and collective way forward. Notice how long it takes to get to that quiet space. Once you get there, hang out. Feel this practice of sinking into your body, into the moment, into your seat. You may need to sink 100 times a day because this inner knowing never reveals the 5-year plan. Remembering that if you are willing to sit in the stillness with yourself, ultimately you will always know what to do. Remembering that the answers are never out there, They are as close as your breath and as steady as your heartbeat. All you have to do is stop flailing, sink below the surface, and feel around for the wisdom, the power. This is living by your own knowing, a way for you to let your life become yours again. Knowing that this knowing goes with you everywhere. And once you know, you can do. Take a big breath in through the nose, out through the nose. Again. Any benefit from us sitting and sharing, we dedicate to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at ease. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be happy. Namaste.